Months ago, I asked the question, is Photoshop on the iPad as good as it is on the Mac or PC? Sadly, the answer so far is no. Today, I asked the same question, only this time about Illustrator. All right, so behold, this is Illustrator on the iPad. And first of all, there's I just want to show you where my cursor is so you can see when I'm pointing to things. No menu up here at the top of the screen. Notice that. No menu bar. Now, I think that is stupid. I'm just going to say that. We've been flirting with this no menu bar thing since what? Windows 95? And I think it's okay to have a menu bar up at the top of the screen, but we don't have one. Of course. Instead, anything that would pass as a menu, just so that you know, not trying to be hostile, is over here in this group of panels on the right-hand side of the screen over here. And so you're going to see things like this pair of scissors. It's not the cut icon. If I get to it, I'll get to it. I'll show you what that looks like. You can cut things at a point if you want like you can with the scissors tool in Illustrator. This thing's the edit menu. That's what this is, and that means that's how you got to copy and paste and that kind of stuff. Right there, and it's just a menu in the middle of a bunch of panels. No, not good design. But anyway, I'm trying to tell you how great it is. This is the layers panel right there, which is groovy. We'll come to groovy things about the layers panel. But notice if you wanted to add a layer, because there is no bottom to this panel, right? There's nothing going on at the bottom. What you do is you kind of do this little tricky drag. Notice that? Isn't that clever? And you hit the plus sign right there. Now I got myself a layer 1 copy. Isn't that exciting? And let's say I want to give it a different name. Then I would drag on it. Do you see how I'm kind of doing a drag to the left there? And then I would tap on this little guy. Oh, no. Did I say I was going to give it a different name? Yes, I did. Fred's easy to type for me. Tap OK. And now it's called Fred. And then if I was like, I don't want a layer named Fred, I would drag this guy and hit the trash can icon. So you get the idea? There's your layers panel. We'll come back to it probably. If you want to find out stuff about an object, like let's say I go over here. Right now I'm dragging around with my finger. And I'll come, for those of you who hate having your fingers start doing things on screen, I'll show you how to avoid that in just a second. But first I'm going to draw me a big old rectangle with the rectangle tool. Notice all the shape tools are here. As well as the line segment tool. We don't have spiral and arc in those guys. Who cares? Anyway, so let's say now we've got this toolbar down below. See that? And if you want to see what anything is, you tap and hold, like so. That's going to be the stroke width. And then we'll show you what it is, but if you do the tap and hold thing, it doesn't actually activate it. You got to tap it again in order to activate it. And now, notice as I drag on this little doohickey right here, I can see the thickness of the stroke in the heads-up display. So that's pretty nifty. It doesn't really offer you the same level of control as dialing in a value, though, does it? And that's why we have over here, below layers, we have the properties panel right there. So I'll tap on it again. With any luck, it'll come up, and you've got some transformation control, some positioning values, a lot of here's opacity in case you want to change the opacity of the darn thing. We have blend modes as well. Lots of them, by the way. Not quite every single one, but I think all the ones that are in Illustrator on the desktop are represented. And then right there, we've got ourselves a value. A stroke value. So I could say, I don't want 30, I want 24, a reasonable person. And you could just enter that and so forth. And then even down here, we have stuff like our corner controls. If you want round corners, for example, instead of your miter corners right there. So you're seeing the corner, so I'll just go ahead and zoom in, and I'm doing that, of course. Everyone knows this. Who uses an iPad? You know that you're just doing a 2-finger pinch. But here, rounded corner, here is the miter corner. You could do a bevel corner like nobody ever does most of the time, and then so forth. So you're going to find your stroke controls down here at the bottom of the properties panel. I just want you to notice that. Now, I'm going to hide the properties panel for a second, just a moment here, so you can see this guy. He's really important. It's this guy right here. And what it is it's basically I forget what it's called. It's called a touch thing, I think. Let's see. Right there, if you tap on the question mark right there, it's going to tell you your touch shortcuts in case you want to see them all. They're not all listed. This is an incomplete list. What I advise you do is touch and try it out. But this would be instead of your shift and your command and your option. Those of you working on a PC and you also have an iPad. But anyway, that's what I got. I got PC sitting here next to my iPad. But that would be Control Shift, of course, and Alt. But anyway, instead of the keyboard modifiers, you got this thing. So if you want to do a proportional resize, that's what happens when you tap on this thing, this touch thing in the center. If I don't touch, notice I can go freeform, but then if I touch and hold, I'm going to go back to proportional. And then watch this. I'll just go ahead and move this guy to a different location by dragging the outside of it. I'll touch and then move to the outside of the touch ring. And now I'm scaling with respect to the center of the object, and I'm also doing so proportionally. Am I not? Yes, I am, to answer my own question. All right, and then down below, notice we've got the taskbar, much as we do in the most recent version of Illustrator on the desktop these days. And so this little guy, notice him? He's nudge. So if you wanted to just kind of nudge something in a direction, you could use the arrow keys on a keyboard, but I don't have a keyboard on me, or that is on my iPad. And so you can just kind of do a nudge too by dragging that icon. You're just going to have a little more control. Theoretically, it's worth a shot. Here's all your bring up and down things, your stacking orders. And then we have this opacity control right here. Notice it. I'll just go ahead and show you. I don't think this one's very handy. I especially don't find it so handy that I think it wants to be the first icon. But, that's it. The opacity takes absolute control. What do I think? You can see the other ones. You can lock an object and that kind of stuff. Now it's locked. And now if you want to, you can tap on it again and unlock it somehow. I know how to do this, actually. Oh, it's right there. You can barely see the icon. Can you see it right there? It's that tiny little lock right there. See it? Okay, and I just unlocked the shape. So see, I do know what I'm doing. Now, if you want, you can bring up the properties panel to change things like fill and stroke attributes. So notice fill, stroke, all that. We do not have dynamic effects in Illustrator on the iPad. So if you're a transform freak, the way I am, you like to just heap on transforms, dynamic transforms, nah. It will respect them, though. You can bring in a document that already has them, and it'll respect them. But the other way to work, if you don't want to bring up the properties panel, which does take a fair amount of room on screen, I don't think it's the big time space waster that the properties panel in Illustrator desktop is, but that's me. Right here at the bottom of the toolbox, we have our standard fill and stroke controls. So you can tap this guy right here to swap them. Oops, I hit it too fast. Swap them like so. And the fact that I swapped it so quickly took the stroke weight down, way down, and it's not thick at all anymore. So now we got to thicken it up like so. And then I could also tap this guy for the fill, and then you have all these wonderful color controls that I'm sure you can navigate. And you have some swatches as well down below, so you can play with those guys if you're so inclined. Hey, real quick. Now, I hope you're enjoying the wealth of drawing tools in Illustrator on the iPad, but there are two that really stand out, especially compared with Illustrator for the Mac or PC, and those are Dynamic Blends and the remarkable Shape Transform tool. To learn about them both, join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/geeknow. And now, back to Illustrator on the iPad. Now I'll move down one more. So from the properties panel down to this guy right here. Notice that? That's where all your guides are. So don't accuse Illustrator of not offering guides the way Photoshop on the iPad does not. We do have them, and so what you want to do is you want to turn on rulers right here. Notice that? And then drag a guide out from the ruler. Got ourselves a horizontal guide, now a vertical guide. And I don't think you can lock these suckers down. I don't see any way to. But I am going to tell you something. If I go wrong, if you hear me say something that's not even remotely true, like you can't lock a guide, please let me know. But I haven't found out a way to do that. Anyway, the thing that's important here, of course, is that they're snapping guides. So that's nice that I can snap into alignment with those guides, because otherwise, what good would they be at all? And you can change the color of the guides. You can turn them off if you want to, just so that you're not seeing them on screen for a moment. Turn them back on. So we have all these good guide controls. All guides, look at that. All guides lock. Right there. I didn't need to wait for you to tell me how wrong I was. There's a lock icon right there to unlock all the guides or lock all the guides. So that's very nifty, I think. So let's say you want to get rid of a guide while it's not locked. I would just tap on it, see? And then if you got a keyboard shortcut, of course, you could just hit delete, right? I don't have a keyboard. Did I say keyboard shortcut? No, I don't have a keyboard. So I'll just tap on that guy and I'll tap here on this trash can, see, to get rid of things, and it'll make the rulers go away. I just want you to see the guides are here. So plentiful as well. I think they're actually pretty well done. Right here is notes in case you want to communicate with other people. And then we've got all this Pathfinder stuff right here, which is great, right? And so, for example, I could go ahead and get myself a circle. Or, I want to draw a circle, don't I? So I'll press this touch thing right here, which can move to a different location. I'm left-handed, so that's why I'm using my left hand to draw this thing over here and my right hand to touch. So you may be different. Quite likely you are. And then I'll go ahead and grab up here at the top of the toolbox. What is the black arrow tool? We all call it that, don't we? The black arrow in Illustrator, because it's filled in, it's black, and then there's the white arrow tool. By the way, this guy right here, I guess, I know Adobe hates hearing the white arrow. They want everybody to step in line and call it the direct selection tool. I refuse, but anyway, now it's the busy arrow tool, the little busy guy with way too much stuff on its icon right there. But that does let you move the points around, and I'm moving my finger. I don't know why I'm dragging with my finger instead of dragging with my stylus, my pencil. I could, of course, but that's why I'm making so many mistakes, is because the mic's sort of in my way. Hate to tell you how the sausage is made, but anyway, let's just get rid of that guy, and I'm going to tap the trash can a couple of times. I just want you to see that the busy little arrow is there. So why don't we call this guy here the big mighty arrow, and we'll call this guy the little busy arrow. Anyway, let's not do that. Why don't we? And so I'll draw another. I wanted to show you Pathfinders. I'll draw another circle right there. Then I'll switch to the big mighty arrow. I'll go ahead and partially marquee those guys, just like Illustrator on the desktop. And you got a shape builder. So if you're really a shape builder freak, I'm not. I don't know why people like it so bad, but you can switch to the shape builder tool right there, and then you can do like a scribble inside the circle in order to make sure you get rid of it. Or why would you go to that much effort? Up here's undo, by the way. I'll redo. You also have a 2-finger tap to undo and a 3-finger tap if it works. It's not working for me. There it is, to redo. It doesn't work for me very often. Anyway, they're both selected. I'll bring back Pathfinders right there. And so I can show you that we got minus front right there. And so see, 1 tap and you're done. You don't have to do that shape builder nonsense. But let's say now you want to move the circle. Double tap takes you into the isolation mode, just like we have in Illustrator, right, on the desktop. And what's great about these Pathfinder operations is they result in compound shapes, generally speaking, which means they're forever editable. So you can change them around if you like to. So feel free to experiment with that. I don't have to tell you to do that. Then after that, we got that scissors, which is the edit menu itself. And then I'm going to take you down we've got alignment icons, options that are available to you. And I'll show you that in just a moment. And we got objects, so big object stuff. So if you select something with the black arrow tool, the big one, the big mighty one, then you're going to have some object stuff that's available. And those are going to be repeated. Everything you're seeing in the object menu right here is repeated down here in the taskbar. Notice that? So we start with opacity and so forth. But we also, what else was there? I want to see. I want to make sure I'm telling you the truth. We've got ungroup right there. So I guess we have different items in the taskbar versus the object menu. So isn't that interesting? I just taught myself something. I hope you enjoyed being there for that. We have some type stuff, and then we've got path options. These are for anchor points and control handles, that kind of stuff. And then we have these wonderful repeat options right here. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of this guy. And let's say we want to auto trace an image, or you want to bring an image in. You can tap on this. So here's artboards, by the way, if you want to add an artboard, manage your artboard, stuff like that. So you've got an artboard tool, just like you do in Illustrator. It's good. It's fine. It's nothing to write home about, but it works. And then we have this image thing right here, which allows you to place an image from a variety of different sources. But if I'm going to bring him in from photos, sorry, here's photos right here, working in the background on the iPad, of course. And I let's say I just want to copy something from photos. This is one of the rare things that works. Right now, I can't copy from Photoshop and paste in Illustrator on the iPad. So that's me. I don't know. Again, let me know if you can do it just fine. But what I'm going to do is tap and hold on this dude. And notice that gets you that wonderful masky thing on the iPad. And I'll let go. And then it should give me the option of copying. See, it went ahead and it's just, outlining this thing. That's so trippy. And now I'll go back to Illustrator. And I should be able to tap and hold, right? This is an iPad. Tap and hold. I'm tapping and holding, by the way. What am I not seeing? Well, anything. But specifically, I'm not seeing paste. Come on, Adobe. I really have to go over to this scissors thing. This is so dopey. And again, Illustrator on the iPad, I generally have a favorable impression of. But this is dumb. And so I'm going to tap on paste right there. Would I like? Yes, I'd like to allow it. Why would I have done it if I'm not going to allow it? Anyway, I'm sure there's some high-tech security reasons for that. All right, my last tool is selected. This guy right here, this like import image tool. So I can't do anything to the image, ironically. So I got to switch to big mighty arrow. Yay. And so I'll move this guy around. Actually, oops, I forgot. Two-finger pinching, how dopey of me. It's just that I have a PC right in front of me running at the same time. So, I'm like sitting there thinking, oh, which skills do I use? My iPad skills or my PC skills? Anyway, so I've got this guy. He's too small. Let's make him bigger. But let's say you want to align him to the artboard, right? Well, of course, you bring up the alignment controls, which are conveniently located below the entire edit menu. Anyway, I'm going to tell you something about these. If you have two objects selected, then you're going to align those and distribute those two objects, right? But it is going to average positions. Again, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I can't figure out a way to lock down an object. To do that thing where you lock one object you want to align to. You specify a key object. That doesn't seem to be here. Whoa. That's a problem. Woe is me is what I'm saying by that kind of woe. But if you don't have anything but one object selected, then align is going to align to the artboard like so. So that's center top, but this is what I want, right? I want it aligned to the bottom, and then I'm going to scrunch it down a little bit so that it takes up this room right here. And now let's say that I want to just go ahead and trace it. Well, then I'll tap on it, and we do have an auto trace down here in the taskbar. It's available right here. Notice Vectorize. That's what tracing is called on the iPad. Totally reimagined. Adobe reimagined that feature and called it Vectorize instead. Good job, Adobe. Or you can bring up the object menu right here and hit Vectorize. That's what I'm going to do. And it is going to take a moment. So it's a lot like the one in Illustrator and the desktop. Is it as powerful? Not quite. But it'll do in a pinch. And like so, this kind of pinch. And notice that it's giving me line art. See, source right here is set to line art by default for this particular drawing. I don't want that. What that's going to do, this is my touch thing, by the way. Let's get it off that panel. What it's going to do is it's going to give me strokes right here. And the strokes are going to be auto-assigned. By the way, the weights of the strokes, they're also going to be kind of clunky, I think. I'd say that's clunky. How about you? Because I think it was a fine illustration before. Notice here, up near Vectorize, we got a little eyeball. They're dimmed, right? Because that's what we do these days. We dim things that are totally available. All apps do that. There's so many apps that do that. Stop doing that. All apps. dimming means it's not available. But anyway, so it was dimmed. It's still available. It is now an eye with a painful lance through it. And that means that we're seeing the original image. And then if I tap the eye again, the dimmed painful eye, then the lance goes away and we can now see the tracing. So that's nice. But anyway, I just want you to notice that that is there. I'm not going to go with a source of line art. You could do sketch, and that's going to get output. Notice it's no longer stroke. It is now fills, which is going to be a bunch of filled path outlines. Threshold, let's just run through a couple of these really fast. I don't want to turn this into a giant tutorial on this particular feature, but threshold, of course, is 255 for white and 0 for black. Of course, yes, of course. And so if you want to trace just a few things, then, like, let's say I say 40, well, 39 is close enough to 40. Anything with a luminance level of 39 or darker will get traced. So in other words, it's more fragile. We're going to trace less of the black. We're going to keep more of the white. If you want to trace more of the black, then you want to raise the threshold value like so, and it's going to thicken up. And then paths are going to be kind of like path fitting. So if you want loose path fitting, you would reduce the path value, although that probably, no, when I'm just tracing black and white, it doesn't really actually invoke much of a delay. And then, of course, we could zoom in here to see it. But what I want to do, notice the color mode is dimmed right here. That's the kind of dimming that means what dimming means. Not like this eyeball, which is not dimmed. It is dimmed because it's physically dimmed, but it's working. I already said that. This dim right here is not functioning. Remember when dim meant not functioning? Back when things in general made sense? Anyway, color mode, black and white. That's the way it is when source is set to sketch. Right now it's custom because I've been goofing around. I'm going to change it to painting though, because remember, if I turn off the eyeball for a second, that we do have color in this original image. And so I'll turn the tracing back on there, and I'll change this from custom sketch to painting. Let's do painting. And that way we're going to get some colors. Now, once you start introducing colors, of course, you're going to have more processing time, as we're seeing right now. It's going to take longer, but it's going to look sweet. Is it not? I think that's pretty cool. And then you can define how many colors. This guy right here, notice my colors value right there, used to be threshold. Now it's colors. So if I don't want so many colors, I want to kind of simplify things. Notice fewer colors makes the progress bar go faster, although you do have to invoke it. But that's still, I think that looks pretty darn good, do you not? And then you can, obviously, I don't need to tell you, you can play with the rest of these. But down here at the bottom, we're just, again, this is not a tracing tutorial. Down here at the bottom, we have expand vectorization. Anytime you see the word expand, if you tap on it, and it is available from, I'll go ahead and undo that change real quick there. Well, actually, the undo, okay, here's a pleasant thing about Illustrator on the iPad that's just like Illustrator in the desktop. It doesn't buffer tracing results, so it sits there and retraces every single time. So it's equally bad in that regard. Anyway, where was I? Oh, I wanted to bring up the object menu so I can show you expand. This expand command, anytime you see it, if you tap it, it's going to send you to path outlines, which means you have control over the independent path outlines, but of course you no longer have those tracing controls anymore. They went away. All right, I'm going to go back to layers panel because I just want to show you this. For those of you who like this about Illustrator, I know people who hate this about Illustrator. I love it. The fact that you can twirl open a layer and you can see the group. There it is. It's a group, and then you can twirl open the group and you can see all the path outlines inside the group. And if you want to name the group, you can just drag it right there, and let's just give it a name, and I'll call it Tom because he's a turkey, and so forth. So you have that kind of crazy control. And that's going to transfer over to Illustrator as well. So these are going to save as cloud documents. You can open them on Illustrator on a desktop. Don't open them at the same time because that creates all kinds of, that's like the problem in the time continuum. And anyway, but I could rename, I re-showed you how I could rename this layer Fred. But anyway, These are the kinds of things you can do, and so it's pretty splendid, I think. Now, I showed you, you don't seem to be able to align to a specific object. You can't create a key object. And what else did I say? You can't do dynamic transformations, right? You can't do dynamic effects the way you can inside Illustrator. The latter of which will be respected, by the way. And then the one thing I will just say, in case you're sitting there thinking, gosh, I wonder about this one. Can you do the live paint bucket? Is there a live paint bucket? There is not a live paint bucket. So that's something to bear in mind. I just want you to know. And then I'm going to show you something else real quick right here. I'll go ahead and delete this dude, even though I spent so much time on it. And notice right here, we got the pencil and the blob brush and the paintbrush. We'll come to those in a little more detail. But I'm going to grab the pencil for a moment. So let me select it, please. Okay, it's selected. And then I'm going to do a quick pinch. I didn't mean to draw that, so I'll undraw it. But a quick pinch will go ahead and center the artboard. And then I'll drag like this in order to draw with my finger. I have seen a bunch of people online, I haven't seen them, I've read their comments, who just hate that you can sit there and draw with your finger, as well as, I'll undo that, as well as drawing with the stylus, like so, the Apple Pencil, if we must give it a name. If you only want to draw, that is, only want to really use the pencil inside the document window, then you tap on this gear right here. So we do have a little bit of a menu in the top right corner of the screen, traditional menu. We've got this, by the way, to swap between the preview and outline modes and so forth, and see the transparency grid. You can see that right there. But notice if I tap on the grid or the gear and tap app settings, I just want you to see this guy. If you go from general to input right there, notice this one that's called right next to my blue finger. See it? It's just to the left. It's called palm rejection. That, if you turn it on, will make your finger stop working. Why it's called palm rejection, I'm not sure, because it rejects your palm. But now I am, nope, I wasn't. I'm dragging with my finger. You can see the ball move around, but I'm not drawing anything. If I want to draw something, I have to drag right here with the stylus. And I could possibly draw something better, a quick sketch of a person's face, for example, and then I'll draw their eye like so, and then I'll grab the big arrow tool and I'll partially marquee them both, and I'll bring up the Pathfinder right there, and I'll say minus front, and we got ourselves a delightfully beautiful eye. Would you like to see more? Well, let me show you. Now, of course, this wouldn't be Illustrator if we didn't have a pen tool, so we do. More on that in just a moment. We also have 3 Freeform drawing tools right here, which take on special significance because, after all, you've got a stylus in the form of your pencil along with your iPad, so you're always drawn directly on the screen. And so for those of you who just love the paintbrush, you love your custom brushes, why then know that Illustrator on the iPad supports calligraphic and art brushes, not scatter brushes and not pattern brushes, but not scatter. Just bear that in mind. Also, you can technically create brushes, art brushes here on the iPad, but it's not very convenient. I don't think it's a very good experience at all. I would much rather create my brushes on a Mac or PC and then bring them in here inside a document. Just load a document full of brushes and then open it on up on the iPad. And so notice we got a bunch of art brushes right here, but you can also, of course, you don't have to paint with the paintbrush. I always like to emphasize this. You can paint with like the pencil tool, for example, and then I'll just go ahead and change the color so we can see what's going on to black, like so. And then I will draw with the pencil tool, and apparently I have a very thick stroke going right here. That might end up being a little too thick. Let's back off. Actually, why don't I just bring up the properties panel right here, and I'll change it. Well, a line weight of 64 points is pretty darn hefty, so I'll take it down to 2 points, let's say. And then what you would do if you want to assign a custom art brush, you would tap on the word brush. See it right down here? Just go ahead and give it a tap, and that's going to bring up your art brushes and your calligraphic brushes. And so I'll just go ahead and assign basic chalk, let's say. And then, you can thicken it up with a wider a line weight if you like, if you're so inclined. But then, you just it gets tricky because you got to watch out for your corners and so forth, just as you do when using Illustrator on a desktop. Anyway, I'm going to get rid of that guy. I'm just going to go ahead and delete it by switching back to the big arrow tool and tapping on the trash can right there. But more to the point, I want you to see when you're working with the pencil, and this goes for paintbrush as well, you've got right here, I'll go ahead and switch to the pencil right there, and I will click on this smoothing icon so you can smooth things even more if you want to. I'll take it up to 8. Usually works pretty good. And then notice that you can, as you draw, I want you to notice the paths sort of wiggle around because they're smoothing on the fly, incidentally. And then if you want a corner, you would kind of pause for a moment and do this number. And there's all kinds of stuff you can do. You can tap, actually, after you get done drawing. You can tap like so in order to draw a straight segment. So play around with that. There's some stuff you can do with the touch thing as well. So you can create straight segments, as we're seeing right here. And so what I encourage you to do where this little touch circle is concerned, the touch ring, is try it out. Keep playing with it. See what happens. Because as I say, even though they're documented right here on the question mark, notice this guy says touch shortcuts right there. It's not a complete list. It's actually pretty, well, I don't know. It's not super accurate. All right, so I'll undo that. But here's, I think, more kind of to the point. Oh, you also have the Blob Brush, which I love so bad because it's pressure sensitive and it's going to result in a closed path outline. So I've got a high smoothing value going. That's good. But I want a thicker stroke. And so notice if I press lightly, I get a thin stroke. And if I press more heavily, I get a thick stroke and so forth. But this is a closed path outline. You do have variable width control for your strokes, by the way, a little bit. You don't have a width tool, but you do have a little bit of width control. I'll let you look for that one on your own. But notice it's pretty wiggly. We've got a lot of anchor points going on here. And they are tracing the outline of the path. And you have that same thing where if you were to press or tap on the trash can, you're going to get rid of all the selected anchor points, and then you tap again to get rid of everything that's left over. So let's say I just go ahead and paint some. Actually, let's go ahead and get the Blob Brush if I'm going to paint like so, and I'm going to paint, in orange, this little stuff coming out of his mouth. That just totally disappeared, didn't it? All right, so I'll paint it again. And, troubleshooting isn't really the experience I'm looking for right now. But okay, it looks like we've got some kind of invisible path outline right there. And because this guy was selected, that's so unfortunate. It decided that it should become part of him, and I don't want that. So I'm just undoing and bringing this back. Make sure things are, if you run into that kind of stuff, it's because Illustrator is trying to add to the selected shape. So just make sure it's not selected anymore, and then try painting something anew. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up in the first place is because I want to show you that you're going to get different options when you tap on something with the black arrow tool right there, the big guy. Then you're going to get a certain group of options, like you can lock that path, right? And then see, now you can see that unlock icon right there. Well, it was a lock icon. It was an actual lock, and it's still locked, and I got to tap on it to unlock this guy. Good. He is unlocked, and then you can, do other things. But it's whole path stuff that's showing up in this taskbar. You can also bring up this object menu right here. Notice convert to guide, so that's an option. You do have custom guides here when working in Illustrator on the iPad, which I think is really great. But if I switch to the little ornate arrow tool, arrow, I'll call them ornate now. We've got completely different set of options, some of which I'll describe in just a moment, but you also see those right here where this menu is concerned. And notice these guys repeat. They're all available in the taskbar as well, including Simplify Path, this guy right there. And so I'll tap on Simplify Path, and that does run a simplification. In other words, it gets rid of the anchor points it thinks you don't need. It's not as sophisticated as Simplify on the Mac or PC, but it is available to you. I just wanted you to know that. All right, let's say we're going to get down and dirty here, and you really want to do some modifications to your path outlines like you would in Illustrator, right? And so I'll just go ahead and tap on this path right here. This guy is unfortunately stuck selected. This does happen. And so, that's why it'd be really great if there was a menu bar up here at the top of the screen with a deselect command. That'd be awesome. But anyway, we don't have that. And so what we do have is the ability to go wide and click off the object and now go in and try to find this guy. There it is. And notice we have a problem, as one would expect. Now, the pencil tool is set up by default to draw closed path outlines. By the way, if the endpoints are close enough to each other in order to close things. If I were to select this point that I don't want here and click the trash can right there, then I would create a hole in the path. I'll do it. You can see that's a mess. All right, so I'll undo that. If you do not want to create a hole, if you want to get rid of the anchor point, the way you would by clicking on it with the pen tool on the desktop, then you want to click this icon right here, Smart Delete. And so I'll just go ahead and tap that guy, and notice that gets rid of the anchor point without creating a hole. There's another point we might want to get rid of, and so I'll tap once again on that. And something else to know here, let's see if I just kind of zoom out a little bit. I'll go to a neutral location. I'm not creating a beautiful work of art. I'm aware of that. Thank you for your input. But I'm going to go ahead and draw with the pen tool now. And you can see that I can, if I go out here, I think I can move. Yeah, see the touch guy right there? You just want to keep playing with that. And so if I go out, like so, I can move the anchor point on the fly as if I'm pressing the space bar on the desktop. Whereas if I'll just go ahead and release, and then I'll draw another point like that. And now if I want to move that control handle, so that we don't have a smooth point, we have a cusp instead, I'll tap in the center of the touch bar, right, the touch ring right there, and I'll create this guy like so, and then I'll close the path outline while touching that thing as well. And now I can use the pen tool the way I would use the white arrow tool. I can use it to edit the shape, and check this out. I think this is really great. If you tap on a segment, you add an anchor point, right? That's nothing new. We've seen that before. But watch this. See how now if I move that anchor point, I deform or reshape the path outline, which of course you need to do sometimes, right? You need to move your anchor points around. But what if you want to add an anchor point and keep it on the existing segment? This is brilliant in my opinion. Look at this. You can just do this number here. This is so awesome. I love this feature. And so that's just a matter of tapping and holding, by the way, with your stylus. And those are just a few ways. By the way, I know this isn't a beautiful piece of artwork. Don't judge me, please. Judge me based on the information I'm trying to impart with you, to you, that is, which I hope you find to be considerable indeed. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And don't forget, for the best features of them all, dynamic blends and the shape transform tool, join me at patreon.com/DeekNow. Then go to Deek.com and sign up for my newsletter. I'm Deke McClellan. This is Deek Now.